welcome back to another episode, all. Throughout this episode, we're going to talk about personal independence payment and the Department of Work and Pensions, and whether their decisions are out of honesty or whether it is all to do with the dishonesty. If you just allow me to share my screen, and we're going to start by watching a video.
We, as disabled people, live in absolute fear of DWP brown envelopes landing on our doorstep.
You're just filled with dread each time because time and again they're just telling you that they don't think that you're eligible.
Arabella Tresillian lives near Bath, more than 200 miles from Carol Vickers in Leeds. But their stories echo each other. Carol has 8 conditions that leave her in continuous pain.
Every bit of standing, walking, bending hurts.
The brown envelope was meant to bring financial support, but instead her claim for the disability benefit, personal independence payment, known as PIP, was turned down.
Bella, come here!
She does qualify for this assistance dog, Bella, who can help empty the washing machine
Phone, find it. Where's phone?
and fetch her phone. But when it came to that PIP assessment,
It's an absolutely traumatising experience. It feels as if you're there to be accused of lying almost. And any little thing that you can achieve seems to be held against you. The fact that I'm wearing a nice dress, that counts against me. And often you meet an assessor who knows nothing about your medical conditions.
there were clear parallels for Arabella, who had to be supported financially by her daughter, then 16, when autism, PTSD and suicidal thoughts left her unable to work. But when she tried to qualify for PIP,
That assessment must have been one of the most traumatic events of my life. We were welcomed by someone who posed as a receptionist, who then watched us in the waiting room for 20 minutes and then introduced herself as actually she was the assessor and she'd been assessing us.
despite her disabilities, Arabella was turned down, and it took taking the case to tribunal to overturn the decision.
The tribunal is horrendous. It was a court of justice. It was me in front of a judge. The fact that this is what we make disabled people do is just astonishing. For me, I associated being in court with having done something criminal.
ITV News can exclusively reveal how much the government spends fighting appeals like Arabella's, £443 million since 2013. Research by the charity Scope suggests 200 million of that was when PIP or employment support allowance had been wrongly denied. In total, 1.2 million decisions were overturned. As part of this investigation, we've heard from 2 whistleblowers. One, an assessor in 2020, did not dare go on camera. But Andy Hill did, because 5 years have now passed and he's no longer a registered nurse.
I feel I can speak on the record now where before I've not spoken on the record, because this is obviously still continuing.
So what was it like doing these assessments?
The whole process of the interview was trying to catch people out. You know, you were watching them from the moment they came in. You'd ask them questions. They'd say, well, to use an example, if they had perhaps arthritis in their shoulder, they can't brush their hair. Well, that might help them to gain an award. But then if they did this at any point during the interview or kind of touch the shoulder or something like that, you'd have to note that down. That would therefore count against them.
Andy says managers tried to get him to downgrade scores, but he refused in writing.
That's what made up my mind to resign.
He lasted just 4 months. The other whistleblower we spoke to, only 7. His story was just like Andy's, having to assess people who had conditions on which he had no specialist expertise, given just 20 minutes to prepare, being told to mark people down if they turned up with neat hair or clean shaven. He also felt the job was designed to stop disabled people getting benefits rather than to help them. The Department for Work and Pensions strongly refute these allegations, saying they're anecdotal and paint a misleading picture. They say independent research shows high levels of claimant satisfaction and that only 5% of PIP decisions are overturned at appeal. But not everyone agrees.
I leave you feeling like a lesser person.
I would pretty much do anything to avoid going through PIP again.
Anushka Astana, ITV News.
As it was said near the beginning of one of the individuals, said that the assessor imposed as the receptionist already assessing them, with the individual not knowing that she was the assessor. That's a clear intentional act of deception. So we already know from the start that this is a deceptive organisation in the Department of Work and Pensions. If you've studied something like psychology, you'll know that this falls under as unethical standards. So Departments of Work and Pensions does not follow an ethical standard of how to process an assessment to begin with. I'd like to you to hold on of where they said that this is all based on antidotes. As I'm going to show you from my own experience, past and present, recently, but it's not all antidotal. And as the individual said, the woman, she pointed out that she would do anything to avoid going through it. And this is one of the ongoing problems. Because of what they are doing to the disabled, so many disabled people are not bothering to get the benefits they require in order to be able to work, because the DWP is scaring them away from doing so, because they don't want to fight in a tribunal, in some tribunal court. So they don't bother trying, and by not getting what they require, they are not able to work. So if the DWP just keeps scaring them off, it's never going to work. So now I'm going to use my own experience, and I'm actually going to show you some evidence, some of my medical records, which will go and contradict the decision they have made recently, as I filled my application form in, of how they've gone twisting things and even making things up. Recently, once I got their decision in the mail, I've been to two organisations, one called Citizens Advice, and an alternative one, which I'd prefer not to give the name of, as it's not one of the biggest organisations known for this. But both these organisations claim, I quote, "They always lie." End of quote. Yeah, the organisation Citizen Advice specifically said that they always lie. So, and how many people must have Citizens Advice seen for them to be saying it's always? And something which rather bothers me a bit is it makes me wonder, is this generative AI? Are these decisions generated rather than actually based on individuals? So if you now just allow me to bring my documents up on screen. We'll go through it. Right, so here's where it says, "My decision." This is what they wrote to me. "I looked at the information you provided and the health professional consultation report and changed the descriptors previously chosen based on the medical evidence received. I decided to award you PIP for a longer time. I reduced your PIP from 25th of June 2025, as I would not expect you to know the information provided would affect your award." Close quote. So they're already trying to hide things there, so we're already getting a lack of transparency, which is a great sign of deception and predictor that someone is trying to deceive you by their lack of transparency. I'll continue. "I made my decision using information about your health condition or disability, including details of any treatment, medication, test results, and symptoms. This information is the best available and enough to decide how much help you need. You said you can manage your toilet needs or incontinence. I agree you can manage this activity. You said you have difficulties washing and bathing and engaging with other people face to face. I agree you have difficulties. You said you have difficulties taking nutrition, managing therapy, or monitoring a health condition, dressing and undressing, communicating verbally, reading and understanding signs, symbols, and words, and making budgeting decisions. You state you do not receive any input from the memory clinic. You do not have any specialist input for your memory loss, despite having specialist nurse for epilepsy input, and you have no input from the dietitian. You do not have any speech and language therapist input, and although you report having obsessive interest, this is not considered when taking nutrition. You get your medications monthly. You can dress your whole body independently, and you take 5 minutes to dress where you do not need to rest afterwards. Despite reporting restrictions in relation washing clothes and cleaning your home, this is not considered when dressing and undressing. You understood the assessment. You do not wear any hearing aids and you listened, understood, and answered questions appropriately. You did not need the questions to be simplified during your assessment. You do not wear glasses to read, and you are able to read fiction books unaided. End of quote. That's just the first page up to now, but I'd like us to look over some of this. Would you agree with me that quite a lot of this seems to be generative? So just quite a lot of things in this first part here, which they claim I said, I never did say. For example, where it says about understanding signs and symbols, I said I'm actually good at that, and that the medical evidence I have says I'm good at recognizing symbols with numbers and communicating verbally. That's what I said I was not good at. Where it says here, read fictional books unaided. I was never asked were the books which I read fiction or non-fictional. And we never spoke about fiction or non-fiction. If you've seen my other videos, you most likely know that I read non-fictional books. As you would have seen me quoting from books but by authors of subjects like neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is not fictional. And where he says you understood the assessment, well, considering all the things they've said I've written that, but we do not consider this, we do not consider this. Well, if they don't consider that and I've provided all this irrelevant information, doesn't that imply that I did not understand the question? Because if I understood it, I would have only told them what they were asking me. So already in here, they're saying and stating things I never said, and they're actually adding things of their own in, such as when it comes to memory, the reason we don't have anything from a memory clinic is because it wasn't diagnosed from a memory clinic, but it's more to do with neurology, which this indicates that they have not looked at the evidence, as where I said one of the two organisations, the one I didn't give the name of, actually said, we agree that they do not look at the evidence. While Citizens Advice said, they always lie. So if we go on to the next page now, I'll just zoom in. Said, you gained grade A in GCSE maths with no reader or scribe, and you do not have any diagnosed learning difficulty. Close quote. I was never asked did I have a scribe or reader. I was never asked about one. But just asked me, what qualifications do you have? And what grade then? I informed them that I got an A in GCSE as a second attempt at college, is what I informed them of. And I would like you to hold on to your words there. You do not have any diagnosed learning difficulty. Because I'm going to show you a record shortly after this, which shows that I've got an official diagnosis of learning disabilities. Now, I'll carry on. Your bills are all paid and up to date, and despite stating restrictions around vulnerability and talking on the phone, this is not considered when making budgeting decisions. I decided you can manage these activities unaided. You said you have difficulties preparing food. Although you report you need supervision, you show to have adequate concentration, memory, and good insight during your assessment. You provided a detailed condition history, and you can stand for longer periods. You were able to peel and chop vegetables, and you have not had any injuries when cooking, where you have had to go to hospital for treatment, which suggests the safety risk is low. I'd just like to pause there for a moment. I informed them that I have not cooked or chopped food because I'm not allowed to. I'm restricted from doing so. Because if I have an epileptic attack with something sharp-edged in my hand, such as a knife, I could chop myself anyway and kill myself. I could say I don't use knives or anything. I don't do the preparing of the cooking. So if I'm not even preparing food, how exactly am I going to injure myself to be taken to hospital? So I would say the restriction of using knives for cooking and peeling, I would say the fact that I'm restricted from doing that indicates that the safety risk is high, not low. So they're going directly contrary to the evidence altogether. The last time I ever cooked, as in chopping up foods, was in the year 2007, my final year in secondary school. That's about 18 years ago. That was the last time I ever chopped a piece of food with a knife, besides cutlery, as in eating a meal. I'll carry on. I decided you cannot cook a simple meal for one person using a conventional cooker, but you can do so using a microwave. So in this case, just using a microwave makes you lose points. The information shows your health condition or disability causes you great difficulty planning and following journeys. This is consistent with your medical history, the available evidence and the information you provided about how your disability affects you. I have considered what your needs are on the majority of days. I cannot consider awarding you PIP for any help you need for anything not covered by the daily living or mobility activities. For more information about PIP, go to www.gov.uk/PIP. Yours sincerely, Office Manager. Oh no, I'd say there's a very lot of contradictions that you should have seen throughout that report of how they came to that decision, of how there's numerous contradictions and big issues, such as I lost points, for example, just for answering the questions. So if you answer a question at the assessment, you lose points. Arrive at the assessment, show up, you lose points. But then if you do the opposite and you don't, if you do neither, you get denied. So it certainly does seem to have a framework of trying to strip you, having some kind of contradictory framework where if you get one, you're going to automatically lose the other. But then if you get that one instead, you'll lose that one. As if it's all planned to inevitably result in people not getting them. Such as where he agreed on the other side, even just here, where it says I've got an adequate memory, adequate concentration, but then down here, he goes agreeing that I don't have a good memory. So which one is it? You see great contradictions throughout the whole thing. And of course, I'm not going to hurt myself preparing food if I don't prepare food. So they will look for any little reason like that and to try and remove and to try and put your points down of the disabled person And that's what one of the two whistleblowers said on the video we watched at the beginning. It's all about tracing them down, downgrading their points, trying to make them lose them. Now on to the next one. Apparently, here's the points which I scored. On preparing food, it says, you cannot cook a simple meal using a conventional cooker, but you can do so using a microwave. And 2 out of 8 it says preparing food. I wouldn't say putting food inside a microwave is preparing food. Eating and drinking. You can eat and drink unaided. I'll say I agree with that. Managing your treatments. You can either manage medication, therapy, or monitor your health condition unaided, or you do not need to. That's a direct lie. I have severe epilepsy and I cannot monitor my epileptic seizures because I'm unconscious during them. So how exactly can I observe myself while I'm unconscious? So that's a direct lie. I can't go to my specialist nurses and tell them, oh, during a seizure, I did this or I did that. Oh, this was how I hurt myself. That's how I hurt myself. So I can't monitor my seizures. And I don't even know how many I actually have. I can only say the ones which I can recall and feel that I had. So there's one direct lie there. And I'm sure you don't need to be an epilepsy specialist to know that someone who has an unconscious seizure, who's unconscious, cannot observe himself. I'm sure you don't need to be an epilepsy specialist to know that. So that's a direct lie. This is the second page of it. Washing and bathing. You need supervision or prompting from another person to wash or bathe. Actually, I'm not allowed to bathe whatsoever, because if I have a seizure while inside the bath or underwater, I will just drown. So we avoid that. Managing your toilet needs. 0, yeah, I agree with that. Dressing and undressing. 0, I agree with that. Communicating. You can express and understand verbal information unaided. I would say that's a direct lie. Going by of the first 2 pages we read about of how the office manager made his or her decision. And where it says communicating, the fact of the matter, I've got an official diagnosis of autism. If I had no communication difficulties whatsoever and understood everything people in general say, I would have no diagnosis of autism if I didn't have any communicating issues or problems. Because that's like the main part that a psychiatrist will observe in order to come up with a diagnosis of autism is social communication and social interaction. That's all of section 8 of the autism diagnostic criteria. So that's a direct lie right there. Where it says reading. You can read and understand basic and complex written information either unaided or using glasses or contact lenses. I'd say, yes, I can read it, but not necessarily always understand it. So actually inform them of what kind of language it is that I don't understand. Mixing with other people. You need support to engage with other people from someone who is trained or experienced in helping people to engage in social situations. 4 out of 8. Making budgeting decisions, scored out of 6. You can manage complex budgeting decisions unaided. Actually, I would say nah, because I'm not unaided in making my budgeting decisions. Aided by my dad, but when it comes to actually paying my bills, for example, what my dad's sister and I did was we came up with this strategy where I'll have them all placed on direct debit. So the energy services such as my electricity, gas and water, that they're all on direct debit, and then that way I can't forget to pay them. So all my bills are automatically paid for me, and that's aid. It's not me doing it myself. The energy services are doing it for me. They're taking the money out rather than leaving it to me. So we actually do try to come up with ways of how we can make ways around the things which do disable me. And then by having all these things like my bills put on direct debit, that has been of great help. And where it says mobility, planning and following a journey scored 12 out of 12. You cannot follow the route of a familiar journey without another person, an assistance dog, or an orientation aid. Even though that says 12, I would actually say that this is not exactly what I said. So I'd say that they're going very narrow here, because I actually informed them that I do travel independently to certain places if I am familiar. If I'm familiar with the route and familiar with the journey, I don't have a problem with it. But it's when it comes to new places I've never been before, and navigating those areas. I don't have an assistance dog, as I don't feel I need one, or an orientation aid. Usually, if I've just got to go somewhere new I've never been before, so that's the only times I have trouble with it. Once I've familiarised the journey, I can follow it. So they've even gone saying that I can't do things which I informed them that I can do. So that's just another lie there. Right, now here's some of the medical records which he informed you of. Certain details have been crossed out for the privacy of the person in question, as they haven't actually given me permission to share their names. Right. So says man where it says, "Dear Mr. Moore, you were referred to us for neuropsychological testing as you were considering undergoing surgery for your epilepsy. We did a range of tests to look at your general intellectual abilities, and overall your performance fell within the average to high average range. You were very good at solving puzzles and putting together blocks to match a design. You were also very good at remembering visual information and were good at drawing figures that we showed you, even after not seeing them for some time. The test showed that you found it more difficult to remember verbal information, and you had some difficulties recalling lists of words and naming pictures. We also did some tests which looked at how quickly you could process information, and you found this quite hard to do. Overall, the tasks that you found more difficult were related to language information processing, but your memory for visual information was good. This pattern of abilities matches the information that we have about the area of your brain which is affected by your seizures. The results from your neuropsychological assessment will be discussed with the epilepsy surgery team. We will then contact you again to arrange another. Then it's on a separate sheet saying that we're going to arrange another appointment. We're on the first couple of pages where it mentioned about saying that I struggled with symbols and so on. I pointed out that with the visual things like symbols, that the evidence said I was very good at. And I informed them that it's when it comes to processing and recalling verbal information is what I pointed out to them. So I told them what the evidence had to say. And then the next part on the second sheet of the first section of where it said my decision, he went saying I have no diagnosed learning disability. Right, you can see that's me, my date of birth, and problems active. And when you look right here, learning disability, autism, epilepsy, and a suspected brain tumour. And then what did the doctors, if you look here, benefits agency reports fit for work. Why exactly did the doctors say that it's a problem that the benefits system said I am fit for work? So the evidence is actually against them. But they've gone saying you don't have any learning disability. So I would say this is not anecdotal what I have shown you. So I would say from what I've just shared there, that's direct evidence that they do directly lie. That the first organisation I went to that said, we agree, but don't look at the evidence. That's evidence right there that they don't look at the evidence. And then the citizens' advice, they said, oh, they always lie. And I'll say both of that can be proven. And this is rather a catch-22 issue they've got now. Because if they now come saying to me that I've understood their language if I make an appeal, they're going to then say, oh, look, we were correct. But then if I point out, yeah, I've understood this information and pointed out that you've got all these lies. So you've told me a big bunch of lies. So they need me to not be able to understand in order for them to have the ability to say they have not lied with intent. But then if they say they have not lied and are telling the truth, all the medical evidence shows the contrary, proving that they are lying again. So either way, they can say, I've understood it, but then if I've understood it, it proves they've lied. But if they go say, oh, you don't understand what we wrote, well, that means you lied then. So I've got no escape from it this time. On this time, as I've applied for it, I've gone and directly lied. And I've got many friends who've got children with disabilities, and they've applied for PIP, and they get denied it. And I would say that my friends' children who are autistic, they're either equally or even more worthy of qualifying for PIP. But what we do tend to see is it's those who actually are disabled who get denied PIP, but the people who are just going and saying that they're disabled and applying for it, they're the ones who actually don't. And I would say by the looks of it, they do something called appeal to emotion. Because people who are not actually educated about the disability will usually just look it up online on the internet and see some big worst case scenario. So then when they're asked to answer the questions, they'll just paint the worst answer, and that'll match up with what's on Google, but it won't match up with what a doctor would actually say. And as the former PIP assessors said on the video at the beginning, they don't have a speciality about the condition. So how are they going to make a valid decision about these conditions? Like that, whoever it was who made the decision on my behalf, just because I had a GCSE A in mathematics and I'm able to read fictional books, he thought that means you can't have learning disabilities then. He based that entire decision on just that. So he obviously, or she, whether it was a he or a she, whoever made the decision on my behalf does not know about learning disabilities. If I didn't have learning disabilities, why is only one GCSE what I've got? Why wouldn't I have GCSE in science, in chemistry, or all these other topics that are going at school? So I'd say that illustrates that the fact a special education school, who goes there? People with learning disabilities. So all the evidence goes to the contrary of their claims like that. So, and the fact that we know they've been deceptive with their approaches on how they assess people, we know that they are intentionally deceitful, our Department of Work and Pensions. So if you do work for the DWP, I would like to give you the invitation to prove what I've just shown you, to prove that I don't have a learning disability, as you claimed. You claimed I don't have learning disabilities. So please, the information I just showed you, prove to me my doctors are lying. That information you had. Everything inside this folder, from all of that, this whole folder, prove to me that all these documents inside of here, written by the doctors I have seen, where the names are crossed out on the articles, prove to me that my doctors are lying. Prove to me that I have lied to my doctors. Why would I want to lie about my epilepsy when I know that if I lie about my epilepsy, it might increase medication, resulting in an overdosage, resulting in irrelevant treatment that would hurt me? So prove to me that I am the liar. Prove to the public that I am the one lying. Prove to me that you are educated to make such decisions about disabled people. Those of you of the Department of Work and Pensions, I hope one of you will accept this invitation, at least. Those of you who keep complaining towards disabled people, claim that it's our fault, you're going to have to do something about employment discrimination against the disabled. And you're going to have to put a stop to just granting those who are not actually disabled as if they are disabled. Just because they paint the worst case scenario without even providing evidence of their claims. As I've come across so many people who do that. So you're going to have to get better at discerning who actually is disabled and who's not, which means you're going to require education about disabilities, not just business. Businessmen do not care about accuracy. Businessmen do not care about truth. We know that they just care about the money. Just to describe what a couple of my friends' children who are entitled to PIP, who were denied it. One of them, he doesn't have the ability to speak. He's epileptic himself and always has to wear a helmet to protect his head. His dad's always got to take him on walks to places to exhaust him so that he can sleep at night. Otherwise, he'll be deprived of his sleep and exhausted throughout the day. He's always in this position where he's got to move his arms up and down and just in on what we call stimming, but otherwise he wouldn't be able to function properly. He's dysregulated, and they go claiming someone who can do this all day, that's someone fit for work, and they denied it to him. There's another individual in there who is kind of phobic being away from walls. He gets so anxious away from walls that he can't just walk down a straight footpath. He's either got to have someone near him to lean towards, or he thinks he's going to fall. And he was denied PIP. And most of the time with his communication, he's always staring at a Nintendo. And just because he could put a meal in the microwave but he didn't know the timer on the microwave worked. He doesn't know how that works. So just being able to put a meal in a microwave, they classified that as successful preparing food, and they denied him it. So his dad made an appeal to birth, and then the appeals were turned over. I've got another friend whose wife's epileptic like myself that did the same to her. Every disabled person I know who has tried to receive PIP have all gone through the same experience. They all had it turned down. They've had to appeal and have everything reconsidered. But otherwise, they just had to accept and not have the PIP they were entitled to. So until our Department of Work and Pensions here in the UK actually educates itself about disabilities, they're not going to be able to identify who is and who is not disabled. And until our Department of Work and Pensions stops it with all these intentional lies, all this dishonesty, how on earth are disabled people going to be able to trust them? They've already illustrated intentional acts of deception. If you think I'm laying some conspiracy, I would say all that my friends have gone through, where I'm saying that by antidote, my friends, but I've shown you my own experience, which was not antidotal. I provided you the evidence, showed you medical records I've got, which actually say the contrary to what they claim. And now, if they go claiming, oh, but we didn't see that medical evidence, well, the fact they're saying we looked at the medical evidence, so that means they lied again. So it was another lie for them to claim you don't have a learning disability, but according to your medical history. So if they looked at the medical history, they would have seen that. So they can't go saying, oh, we didn't see that history. But if they didn't see it, they didn't look at it. So that just illustrates another direct lie. So I'd like to extend the invitation one more time. If you're a PIP assessor or the one who makes the decisions of what information the PIP assessors gather, prove that the information I just shared is my doctor's lying. Prove to me that I am lying about my epilepsy, about my short-term memory loss, and prove to all the people you deny PIP, prove to them they are lying to you, and share that with the public. So please, everyone, make our Department of Work and Pensions become more transparent and become honest, educated people who have the required education to make such decisions. Not someone who thinks that just because someone's got a talent in one subject, that means they can't have learning disabilities. Who thinks that autism has no association with communication difficulties. I would say Autism Awareness Month, which has been going on for over 60 years now, I would say we've made everyone's aware by now that autism is associated with social interaction and social communication deficits. I would say that's very evident. So for them to think someone autistic has no communication difficulties, that's just contrary to the science, as well as the medical history, as well as the reported circumstances. So please, if you work for the DWP, prove that those records are placed on there, typed by the NHS, but I'm the one lying. Prove me wrong. Otherwise, we will know we have a dishonest Department of Work and Pensions. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. And I'll see you on the next episode.